Illinois.
You are now entering PaleoRadio.
Welcome to PaleoRadio with your hosts Jeremiah Bannister and Joe Elder.
Welcome to the greatest show in all of the land. My name is Joe Elder.
And I'm Jeremiah Bannister.
And we are PaleoRadio. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Monday morning. Yeah. We're here to take names, kick butts, and report the news.
Oh, and you know what? It is a really nice day outside. In fact, I kind of wish that it was feeling the same way inside the studio as it does outside. Because as soon as I opened up the studio, it's basically an igloo up in this thing.
We're a little chilly bear.
A little chilly, a little freezing cold.
A little chilly. But boy, not chilly, super hot. The topics that we have today, some amazing, very, very, very interesting topics that we've got. Very eclectic group, very a mixed bag, if you will. We cover the gambit today.
Yeah, all the time. Right here, soaring obesity could see millennials die at younger age than their parents. And totally not surprising, although I thought this was interesting when it's over at the Telegraph, and I think that it's focusing primarily on people in England. And when we were in England, and I don't want to diverge too far because we're just introducing topics, but this is worth it. When we were in England, for Angela and I's daughter, she had cancer, and she got to go to a Make-A-Wish trip, and she wanted to go see the Doctor Who museum. So we went over to England, and we're looking around, and we're just surprised in London how there are so few fat people. And I mean this, like where we did not see any fat people at all. And then all of a sudden, we were waiting kind of by this sign, and we see these two ladies come walking up, and they're hyper obese. I mean, they're just very, very, very large people. And our daughter says, "Look, Papa, you know, there's somebody finally who's overweight. It's been like 24 hours up in that place, and there's nobody." So they come up, and come to find out they're coming to the same bus stop where we were standing. And they said, "Hey, do you know if this bus goes to this certain place?" And we looked at them, and I said, "Are you from America?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, we're from Iowa." And I'm thinking, oh, my gosh.
Yes.
Of course, I didn't tell them why I thought that was hilarious. But the mere fact that the only people who really stuck out for 24 hours in London as being hyper obese, they were Americans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and too, I think like you said, we don't want to diverge too far, but I do think the study shows that may not be entirely the case, that young people in Britain are quite obese. And boy, we have a lot of different ones. Another one is Democrats love bashing Trump, but that alone won't help them win again. I really like that article. It's from The Guardian. One of my favorite ones, obviously. We've been mentioning The Guardian a lot. But that one is, I think, hits right at home with something that, especially to be frank, a lot of folks that listen to the station could use this. I'm serious. I don't know any other way of saying it. This is an important thing.
Yeah.
Yes, Donald Trump's awful. I know it. You know it. Guess what? The people that voted for him and a lot of people that back him up, they don't care. We're going to have to sell on a different way other than Donald Trump is bad.
And this is the show that goes there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. This is the show that goes there. College professors fired following remarks on Tucker Carlson tonight. That's an interesting story, as well as the whole ecosexuals believe having sex with the earth could save it.
Yes.
That's a Vice story. Wow.
Yes. I wonder if a man or a woman came up with that idea. Just curious. The other topic that we have is in North Carolina. No is not always no if the sex has already started. This is an amazing bill that got passed that's just insane, and we're going to cover that one in great detail.
Yep. Kids don't need playborhoods. They need to be left alone to play. This is actually kind of an interesting one because it tackles a number of different things about parenting and childhood play all at one time. It wouldn't be something to go super deep into, but it was something that caught my eye for sure. That's over to Culturated, too. I think it's the first time I've ever cited a Culturated where pop culture matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah, I think that is the first time we've been citing that. Then the other one that we have is a BuzzFeed article, 10 Things Psychologists Want You to Know About Trigger Warnings.
That's going to be fun.
That will be an interesting one.
If we get time, we have to deal with this. This is a huge one. This is right up there with one you mentioned earlier. But modern-day slavery. Many southern states have prison inmates working in governor's mansion, in Capitol buildings, another old tradition that belongs in the dustbin of history.
Yeah, and that
it's
one...
an interesting... Yeah, I did not know this.
Yeah, quite a surprise.
Yeah.
For what's going on day to day. But boy, yeah, we do have a lot of different topics. Where do you want to go to start off?
I think we should just start with the fat people.
Let's do it.
The fat British people. Let's be more specific.
Well,
yes. Let's talk about the obese British people.
Yes, and of course, because it's about British people, this is from the Telegraph, so this is a British rag. So, soaring obesity could see millennials die at a younger age than their parents. And as I said again, Telegraph, this is by Laura Donnelly. She's a health editor. 4 in 10 young adults in Britain are overweight or obese, according to the new figures released by the NHS. Nearly 3 million 16 to 24-year-olds weigh too much, 1 million more than 2 decades ago, the statistics reveal. So 1 million more people are overweight than what was...
Overweight or obese.
Yes.
Now, what are the exact numbers there, like with that?
I'm not sure.
Right here.
Have to look in.
17% of young men have a waist of at least 40 inches.
Whoa.
Yeah, so 20%, right? 1 out of every 5 dudes has a 40-inch waist.
That's big.
Yeah, so the optics weren't really that accurate for Team Tiny Dancer while we were in London.
Yeah.
Of the whole makeup. That's why you shouldn't judge an entire country by what you see in a city.
Well, and I think too, yeah. Well, and I think you look at it too, BMI wise, right? But the body mass index has been one that I know has been challenged before, a little bit with people saying, there are people that are kind of have that short, squattier stature. I'm one of them. I'm 5'10", but I've always been a pretty squared off dude. And BMIs, when I was 17 years old, I had, I think, 8% body fat, and I was still well over on the BMI chart for my weight. Yeah, I was supposed to be 170 pounds. I wasn't 170 pounds unless I was a freshman in high school.
I was at the MOVE program, motivating overweight veterans everywhere. And less people think I'm totally fat-shaming, which maybe I am a little eatsy bit, but I fat-shame the daylights out of myself. I'm actually part of this program about overweight veterans, so I am an overweight veteran.
Oh, I think it's someone within, I think both of us as overweight white dudes, we're talking about our own group.
Yeah, a whole bunch of fatzos we hang out with. Yeah. And so, when they talked about it and about the BMI, and they were saying, don't judge yourself based on this. And she was going around the room and saying, a lot of you guys have those mesomorphic bodies. You've got that lumberjack build. That even if you lost a bunch of weight, your calves are the size of other people's necks. I mean, it's just, you're a huge, monstrous person. You are not going, probably, just based on your structure alone. You're going to be way off that chart. And she was saying that chart was made quite a while back, and it's based off of, there's like a standard model of a person, and that person is a very fair-builded person. Like you can't, it presupposes you're pretty petite. And so we have a lot of people taking that growth hormone as kids now, and not many of those petite kids coming up anymore. A lot of thick ones. And so the BMI stuff, don't judge yourself by it.
Yes.
But if you're wearing 40-inch waist, you better be the thickest bone person in the world, or else you're seriously overweight.
Yeah.
I mean, you ain't. I used to wear 42s, right? I wear 34s right now, right? So, in 36s, 34s kind of float in between. It depends. Old Navy makes me feel skinnier.
Yep. Yeah. That's like Arizona jeans. So I never can fit into my. I wear 36s, 38s, and I can never wear Arizona jeans. They're just. Yeah. They're against big butts.
Yeah, same as the buckle. Any of those places that in high school, Zach from Saved by the Bell, would buy clothes there. Zach Morris, I cannot buy clothes at the place. I can't buy it yet.
Can't buy Zach Morris clothes.
Can't buy Zach Morris clothes. But I had his haircut in the 80s.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Well, going back into the article, as you said, it said 40-inch waist was 17% of young men have a 40-inch waist compared to only 4% in 1993. 23% of women of this age had a waistband of at least 34.5 inches, a rise of 9% since 1993. It also says Professor Lord Ian McCall, which is a pretty dope name, by the way.
Yeah.
Professor Lord Ian McCall.
That's just a double dope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A former surgeon said, quote, overweight and obese young people may well end up living shorter lives than their parents, most of whom were slim in their youth.
Don't tell them that.
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing? They might feel that you've just shamed the daylights out of them, and you've kind of threatened them. They might feel threatened.
Yeah, well...
Like what? I might die earlier than my parents because of my behaviors?
Yeah, some people don't like that.
Yes.
Some people don't respond very well to that.
No.
And he goes on to say, already some obese children under 10 have diabetes. This crisis is bankrupting the NHS. It's killing millions and costing billions, but the cure is free. Eat less. Whoa.
Wow.
He's
But
kind
see,
of...
we need that.
Yes.
We need more of you, Professor Lord. I mean, I'm serious. We need more of these. Maybe not more Professor Lords. It's cool that that's such a unique thing.
Yeah.
We don't want a whole bunch of Professor Lords.
It would taint it.
But we need more people who think that way because it's totally the real thing. Angela took a picture. Actually, my wife, she's helping us today. She helps out all the time. Amazing. She's a huge support behind the scenes. It doesn't get too much credit too often. It's a bummer. But she handed me her phone. She took a picture yesterday, and it has this plate that was given to us. Was this given to us by the VA or by our kids? Okay, Teresa, our youngest, came home with this little plate, and it's got a little spot on there for your protein, a spot for your grains, a spot for your fruit, and a spot for your vegetables. Mm-hmm. So I have it. I'll maybe post this here on our Facebook page or on my personal one, so people can see that's a portion, right? So like just beginning to eat in portion sizes and actually putting the real thing in the real spot, just doing that alone would be huge. Yeah. Is it easy? No. Right?
No.
I make a lot of trips to the fridge, but dude, here's the thing, man. Like, people can do it.
Oh yeah,
people can do it.
I think a lot of it has more to do with time than anything else. A lot of people don't plan their meals the way they plan to go to work, and they don't. And there are people that have the luxury of all day to plan their meal, and many don't. And most people, if they forget to bring their lunch, now they're at work. Now they have, what's their choices? Oh, I'm going to fast food it today. I'm going to get something out of the vending machine. And it's the meal prep.
I've had to do that.
When I was cutting weight and in mixed martial arts on a serious level, my Sunday was dedicated to meal prepping. Entire day. I cooked chicken, and I made asparagus, and I made green beans, and I made peas, and I made everything else. But it was everything. It was a 4.5 hour dedication and that's just the cooking time, not the getting the ingredients. I mean, and it takes time. I think that there's a planning aspect to it. Many people that come to work and forget their lunch, or they just ram something into their lunch bag from work or from home and just ran out. Right?
Oh, totally. You know, and I don't want to just treat people as if there's no reasonable explanation for why people are overweight other than just simply, well, I don't want to lose weight, or I'm just too lazy, or this and that. But look, I don't think somebody has to be an Austerian to say, put a tracker on your phone and find out how much time you're dedicating to social media, and then find out if you can find those 4 hours in there. Mm-hmm. I'm dead serious. Sure. I bet $1 bazillion. A lot of people can find that time. In fact, you challenged me one time, Joe. It's changed my life forever. You did. You totally changed my life. You brought up one time about blocking out days and just seeing how your days roll, and how a lot of times we have time for certain things, but we use that time. We don't think it through. We just glide and slip and slide through our day and whatever's happening in the moment. Well, I'm thinking of this while I've got my free time, rather than saying my free time is still free, but it should be still directed in some sense, and have time allotment for total freedom to just whatever the blah, you know. But to block out that time, to block out those things in your life, and people don't have to be hardcore Dave Ramsey to know that. Well, if I say that I can't save some money, but I'm buying packs of specialty craft beers and stuff, that I'm kind of lying. You're kind of lying a little bit. Unless you're just a full-blown alkie that needs to go to rehab.
Yep.
And you're just buying stuff like that, then you have to reflect a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think it's about blocking out your time. That's what it's always been about. Is if it's important enough, this is just true. And I know a lot of people fight against this grain, and there are a lot of obstacles. I'm not saying there's not, but if it's important to you, you will do it. If it is not important to you, you will not. That is it. It is there isn't a middle ground into that. And I know a lot of people will say, well, there's extenuating circumstances. And there are in a lot of cases. And if it's important enough, you'll get past those extenuating circumstances. And if it's not, they'll stop you. That's all there is, whether it's eating right, whether it's exercising, whether it's making connections with your family and staying in connection with your family and friends. All of it's the same. If it's important enough, you will block out time and you will do it.
Big shout out to Justin Barclay. He's lost 30 pounds since January 3rd, gained 77% strength.
Support our work by visiting patreon.com/PaleoRadio today.
Back to Eagle and Dragon.
I kind of threw something out there right at the tail end of that segment, and I didn't really give any context, so I said Justin Barclay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Justin Barclay is here in Grand Rapids. We definitely got to hang out.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, we have to get together with this guy and actually just have dinner with him.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, we have to do this. It's totally essential. But he's a radio personality. He's a podcast personality, and you can find out more about him at justinbarclay.com. Really cool dude, though. He's kind of just down-to-earth kind of guy. A lot of motivational stuff. He's getting his life organized. And he's an overweight guy, and he's been working super, super, super hard. But his podcast, if I remember correctly, his podcast is broadcasting over at The Blaze.
Wow, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so he's doing a good job.
Yeah.
He's doing a good job in life all around. So a big shout out to the big man, Justin Barclay. Keep doing a good job, man, and don't ever give up. You're really rocking, and you're doing a great job.
Yeah, that's great. So we were talking in the middle of the break about Tucker Carlson. Do you want?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do that. Let's talk
My
about
goodness
that.
gracious. So okay, did you see this?
I didn't
clip
see the
or anything?
video, but I did read. I read about it.
Yeah, me too. I don't have Tucker Carlson or any show set on my computer or anything.
I certainly won't have
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson set on mine.
Yeah,
Oh my
I know
God.
you won't. I know this is a little bit off track, but man, I saw on Facebook. This is fun. I saw on Facebook a Kasparov thing about chess and how he has a new program now, a new thing where he's
new book.
teaching. Well, he's teaching master chess now again, and it's very well organized, beautiful stuff. And he was talking about life, and he's talking about how it's all about chess moves. And I said, I might send that to Joe.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, because you like Kasparov.
I'm a Kasparov fan. Yeah,
Yeah,
I like him.
you like him. You like yourself some David Frum even.
I do like David.
Yeah,
Frum.
so I'm kind of on the Tucker Carlson end of the spectrum. You're more on the David Frum,
I'm on the
Kasparov end of a
Yes, I
spectrum.
am.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but on this episode of Tucker Carlson tonight, college professor was fired following remarks that were made. And so what happened, a New Jersey college professor who appeared on Tucker Carlson tonight to defend a black-only Black Lives Matter event has been fired after the college's president said she made racially insensitive comments on the show. Essex County College in Newark announced Lisa Durden's firing on Friday. She taught communications and pop culture classes as an adjunct. On his June 6th show, and so it goes back a little way here, Carlson and Durden, who's black, got into a debate over the appropriateness of allowing only blacks to attend a Black Lives Matter event in New York City on Memorial Day. And she said, listen, what I say to that is boo-hoo-hoo. You white people are angry because you couldn't use your privilege card to get into the Black Lives Matters all-day Memorial Day celebration. I'm so sorry about that. The Black Lives Matters all-black Memorial Day celebration. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
She did. Now, and that's the thing is having an all-black Black Lives Matter Memorial Day celebration racist?
I guess it depends on, like, how are they going to stop people? If it's in New York.
There you go.
If it's in New York. And I guess it would be like, what's the nature of the interaction that if somebody not meaning ill, like let's say it's not an ill-willed person, but somebody was like, oh, and they come up and that person, they stop and say, listen, only black people today.
Yeah.
They might say, that interaction sounds kind of strange.
That's right. Well, yeah. How would they deter black people or white people or other people from coming? Because I mean, let's cut through the cake. Obviously, this is more about saying white folks can't come. I'm just wondering about it. The other thing too is my own personal take. Do I lose sleep at night knowing I'm not invited to the all black Lives Matter Memorial Day party? No. I don't lose sleep at all. I don't care.
Yeah. Because same here. I mean, dude, I've got many other things I could totally do. I understand why people would look at that and kind of have a weird reaction right away, kind of an initial response to it. Go, man, that's just kind of weird. But I think if you really ask them, say, did you really want to go for real? Mm-hmm. Like for realsies. And if you did, and you're really an advocate, and you're like, man, I really wanted to go because I really support it, and they look and say, look, for this specific event, it is just this. That person would probably be okay with that.
That's how I feel. Is I don't feel like Black Lives Matter is a exclusionary movement necessarily. I think in this case, I think this is this the only time Black Lives Matter's ever had an event that said only black people can come? Because
it seems the highest profile.
I know a lot of them.
For sure.
I know in a lot of cases, Black Lives Matter is asking anybody to come with them to protest and to be a part of the movements and stuff. So it's just a question. It's kind of the thing of like, how offended would I be about having an all Hispanic party on Cinco de Mayo, and people said this particular party is for only Hispanic people of Central American descent.
Yeah.
Or Spanish descent. I don't know. I don't think it would. I certainly wouldn't write letters about it. Let's just put it that way. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be writing home about it.
Well, there was a lot of people apparently that did. That was the thing.
Yeah.
College president Anthony Monroe said Friday the Fox News appearance prompted calls from students, faculty, and prospective students and their families expressing frustration. This is a quote. Expressing frustration, concern, and even fear that the views expressed by a college employee with influence over students would negatively impact their experience on campus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's diversity of thought argument. This is the opposite spectrum of going in with a megaphone and shouting someone down. You take their job for what they said. It's the opposite end of the same problem to me. I don't think she should have lost her job for what she said. Personally,
yeah.
I think that she could hold the view, and you could say, I don't want to have this college professor teach my kid because I don't like her views. However you want to do that, but this is honestly to me the opposite end of the spectrum of liberals who walk into the place and shout them down with a megaphone. Mm-hmm. This is the conservative version of we remove you from the school.
Isn't that the whole thing?
Yes.
You should have a debate. It seems like the college is a perfect place for it. All right.
I think so.
Stan,
yes.
Calling from GR, listening on FM. Welcome to PaleoRadio.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, my man.
Hey, this is a guy who's been black almost all my life.
Yep, that's right. Almost all your life, right?
Almost all my life. And to go into an all-black thing, I might even feel uncomfortable with something like that because I don't think that's the goal as I see it. I probably make a lot of people mad when I say that, but I think harmonizing should be the goal, any kind of effort like that, to understand everyone, because you can't change and you can't, you never really know what someone else is thinking. It's more psychological how you're brought up, and you learn color. So to unlearn it, you have to actually work on it, So anyway, but what I really called about you guys is I've been listening to you guys, and you sound like the Abbott and Costello of talk radio.
That's great.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Lewis.
Take that as a compliment.
I remember the evolution. I was thinking of listening to you guys this morning. I was thinking about how you guys evolved from, I guess you used to do it all on tape before.
Oh, yes, all on audio.
And then now you're kind of like, getting out into the public and have fools like me call you. But can you kind of like give maybe a minute or two about how you guys, and I was wondering how you guys work together. You're both smart in different ways, and how you guys merge together, and which one, is hand in glove and all that kind of stuff. And I'll just get off the air and listen to it.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Joe. I'm going to light up some incense here, buddy. I'm glad I brought the Cavazier.
Yeah, good deal.
I got the candles, got the incense.
Can hear it pop.
Do we have that sexy music to play? Do we have that? Not today.
Not today.
Not today. Yeah, we'll light up the fire.
Yeah.
Get the fire brewing. We've got the Peter Friendly Bearskin rug. We'll cuddle up on there, and we're going to answer you, Stan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think one major thing is we've always been big into looking at where our show can go next. So in terms of doing media, PaleoRadio has changed in a lot of different ways, even in what we've been doing this now for 2 years. And we started off as a Google Hangout show that was a video format. We went from that to audio recordings through Secular Media Group, and then we got picked up again here at WPRR, a station that we both were working on before, and we've adapted to go back into the live setting. But more specifically to Stan's question about how we hang out with each other or how we make things work, well, I think you can tell by listening to the show that Jeremiah and I are friends. So there's a lot of these conversations that we have, we would be having on our own for our own entertainment at his house or at my house in our regular everyday conversations. So we've taken a way of adapting it and making it into a medium format that works for us. But overall, I think we just work together in a sense of we both have a professional background in radio. We know what we're trying to do. We have the same ideas of goals and how to set goals. But the biggest thing is we understand that there are a lot of things that we are not going to agree on, and it doesn't stop us from enjoying the show and having a great time with each other. A lot of times we look at it and say, yeah, we'll round the bend and come back to this argument another time, and we're just going to move on. And I think it's really important, especially because people need to understand that, yeah, Jeremiah and we're vastly different on a lot of things politically.
Yes, we are.
But I love JB to death, and it's an important thing, especially in today's climate, about how people act of others that disagree with them, that I think it makes the show extremely important in that sense.
Anyone familiar with my work over the years knows that I am not a fan of neoconservatism. I can't really name hardly any neoconservative thinker that I would say, dude, I just love the impact that person's had on our political economy. I mentioned two of them that Joe's a big fan of.
Yeah.
Of their literature. Not to say, I'm not saying Joe's a neoconservative, but when it comes to certain elements of foreign policy, he's far more influenced by people that I consider the opposite of me. I'm a nationalist. I've stated this so many times. I'm totally a bona fide nationalist. Joe is a globalist.
Yes.
Joe is I would say, is a realistic internationalist. I would say that I'm pretty darn close to saying, get us out of everywhere. Bring them home. Let's. People can say, well, you're isolationistic. I can accept that. I'm okay with that label. People use it as a pejorative, but to me, I'm like, well, why would we? We got oceans around us, and so we take different positions on a host of different issues. Even matters to do sometimes with how do we deal with the understandings that we're coming to with issues of race? How do we explain that to people? What is it? What is pride? What are these different things? We have disagreements over these. These are real, and yet there's a respect, because it's not every day that I can meet and hang out with and talk to somebody at the level that I can with Joe Elder. Period. Full stop.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
And so when you're in that world and you don't feel that there's a whole bunch of people at that level, no offense, but if you don't feel that way, well, guess what? You should start a show maybe with the guy who you're doing that with, especially if both of you love radio. We'll be right back right after this.
Now back to Joe and Jeremiah.
Welcome back to PaleoRadio, live in studio. Again, every Monday here at WPRR Studios. You can call and join the conversation at 616-656-1680.
Stan said on the line during the break, he called the program and said, look, as you guys were talking, he had an image in his mind, right, of Prometheus. And,
yes.
and moving forward and progress and the power of it all. And so it was a really cool image there. And I'm really grateful to have listeners like Stan and friends like Stan. Let's just say what it is. Friends like Stan. We're really grateful. If you'd like to call, I don't even know, have we given this number yet?
Yeah, I just did.
You just did. Okay, we'll give it again. Why not? 616-656-1680. And listen, people need to know that at 11 o'clock, shortly after 11, we are going to have Question of the Day.
Yes, we will.
Yes.
We always have Question of the Day, and you can dip into the immaculate PaleoRadio prize vault. It's got everything you've ever wanted and more. And if it doesn't have what you want, tell us, and we will bring it.
Oh, dude. There might be some additions to the because some stuff's going to come out of my secret stash and go into the vault and stuff like that. But dude, I just picked up some really cool cards, man.
Did you?
I have a Westbrook card. I have a James Edwards card from when he played with the Phoenix Suns.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I'm talking like old school. And for people who don't fully remember James Edwards, I don't blame you at all. I mean,
if you're a Pistons fan, you ought to know.
Yes, if you're a Pistons, you know James Edwards and stuff like that. But what was the other one, man? I got another really great. I even got a Tiger Woods card.
Oh, nice.
I might give that one to my dad. I'm not afraid that he would be, that he's listening to the show.
Timing couldn't be better for giving him a Tiger Woods card.
So I'm going to give him a Tiger Woods card and say, hey, bro, this is a good one. It's $10 or whatever. It's a good card. Rare. There's also a Jack Nicklaus one that I saw. And so, I don't know, man. I like going into Legends and checking out the cards. I like going back and even seeing, old baseball cards from a long, long time ago.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. I'd like to buy some, even if I don't know the players. I'd look them up and find out which one, say, hey, of all the old school players, which ones would I really like?
Who are the
it's reasonable
ones, right?
for me to buy because,
It'd be cool to get your hands on a Ted Williams card. That'd be pretty sweet.
No, that'd be mega dope.
It'd cost a pretty penny. Speaking of cost, and what Democrats could stand to lose in election after election if they don't get with it, this is an article from The Guardian. Democrats love bashing Trump, but that alone won't help them win again. This is by Zachary Karabell. And I really think that he hits on some pretty good points here. So we'll just jump into the article and go from there. As the wheels of Trumplandia continue to spin, it's been easy to overlook one glaring reality. Democrats in Congress are doing almost nothing other than finding new and creative ways to resist the Republicans. As a political tactic, that may be smart, but it leaves Republican voters with no clear or viable alternative as attention slowly begins to turn to midterm elections in 2018. And I do think that's true. In just the sense of the Democratic Party has taken an angle of just reading the news and following what Donald Trump is saying and responding to Donald Trump's tweets and the overall, I would say, foolishness and insanity of the administration and not focusing on getting their own agendas together. Because I think you have a primed group of people sitting in the Democratic wing of old Bernie voters that are just waiting for more strong progressives to run. And they're sick of this whole idea of focusing on the enemy. And I really think it's not going to help Democrats a year and a half from now if they don't change this.
I think, too, that part of this is almost describing the Democratic establishment and more establishment-oriented people on the left. Because it seems like, the people on the real progressive left, the pretty hard left people, they're moving hardcore. They're trying to get a lot of people running. And not just for negative, not just for, let's oppose Trump or let's be part of the resistance, but actually to have those messages that say, look, we believe in Bernie. We believe the believers of the stuff. They're out there. They just had, the People's March. Yeah. Nathan Dufine.
Yeah.
He went there. And so, in fact, I think earlier today, maybe even on this very station, they were playing some clips, I think, from the People's March. And so you have on that side of the left, you have a great deal of organization. You have huge amounts of activity, even in the Michigan the convention, the Democratic convention. It was just bursting at the seams. On the other hand, a lot of that's bursting at the seams with people who are just chiding the president. They're not coming up with creative ideas that they can pitch to people to say, yes, not only is that bad, but this is a good alternative. Because I think people, if nothing else, demonstrated that in this last election that they were willing to kind of put up with the bad unless there was a really good alternative. They did not feel that Hillary was a real alternative, a lot of people. And so if they want to keep having that happen, right, then just keep on trolling out, keep on bringing out the same thing, trotting out the same horse.
I also will say this, that another option would be to double down on doing this and do this so hard and so rough that you win the presidency, because Republicans did win it this way. Republicans don't have a plan. They haven't had a plan for 8 years. Their plan has been to say no to Obama. For almost a decade, there has been nothing. Why did they make the new health care plan behind closed doors and didn't allow anyone to see it when they wanted 2.5 months to debate Obamacare, and they didn't even unveil it until a day ago behind closed doors. They don't have a plan. They've spent 8 years doing nothing on their end other than saying all of Obama's ideas are bad. And the Tea Party splintered from that, saying we don't think that the establishment Republicans are going to be hard enough on Obama, so we're going to work away from him, and we're going to get our own establishment going. And I think we're seeing the same overall things happening on the left now, where they don't like the establishment, but that it's a huge wave of people that aren't really putting much together in terms of ideas, other than their universal ideas. They don't like the ideas of this president, but the counter arguments aren't there. Yeah. Where is the push through for single payer?
See, I can live with partisan politics. I hate it. I loathe it with everything in me, but I can live with it if it's not simply boiled down to payback and power plays. If the logic simply becomes payback, and that's all it is, and both sides are in this game, and there's not really putting forward some kind of narrative that can bring people together and coalesce this nation and actually move us forward, then I have a real problem. It's poisonous at that point.
Yeah. I think we're at that point on both ends.
I do, and that's what sucks. Because it wasn't always both sides.
No, and hey,
come on.
But let's call this for what it is too. Right now, is that is the tacitly admitting that we know that liberals are the big kids in the room. It's tacitly admitting it that the liberals are the ones that were expected to behave better, and now we're in disarray because liberals aren't. But it has never been, and I just have to say this, it has never been, since I've been doing politics in 2012, it has never been that the right has been the rational ones that we need to be more like. It has been that we can't be more like that. And now we are. I'm just saying it full out.
It used to be we can't be like that. And now it's, if we don't, it's like having a hand tied behind our back and we're going to lose.
Right. Yes.
And I'm like, man, that logic is just garbage.
Total.
It's just constant. It's self-fulfilling. It's fatalistic. I mean, you're basically saying, look, if you enjoy this game, the end result is sticking your head in a big pile of poop.
Yes.
Like,
it is.
And just breathing it and saying, suck it up, buddy, for the good of the country. And I'm just like, oh, no.
Yes.
This is not good.
Yeah, it's not. And I think that's my biggest worry right now, is that we're seeing a devolution of politics on all sides. Because I don't think we have true leadership right now, in the sense that most people the administration that's running right now is spending a good majority of its time defending itself more than it is laying out policy. And that can be because of a bunch of different factors, but that is just the nature of the beast. And then you have the outside party focused on just chastising the in group, and that's it. There's no response. Like, I mean, when I'm talking about like single payer, how many people are waiting for a candidate to get up and say, I want to push for single payer? I mean, I think you'd get way more support for that than you would just half-heartedly defending Obamacare.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, I think you're going to start seeing, and we're going to start seeing that, I think, especially from the people who will be running against establishment-oriented candidates on the left. But I think another topic that's going to be coming up with this about a positive agenda is going to be universal income. Yeah. I'm seeing a lot more people just interested in the discussion. It was a lot of people even over the weekend who were like, hey, I'd love to know your thoughts about this. I'm like, where is this coming from? Like how – and there's a lot of people that have begun talking about these issues and stuff. And I think you're going to hear that more and more and more. Whether or not it's going to happen, right, or how quickly it would happen or anything close to it would happen, that's another story. But the mere fact that you put those two things together, a more universal basic income that would take on many of the challenges of welfare programs and get rid of them, in fact. And then you would also have universal health care. Those two propositions right there, those are both there's going to be a lot of people wooed by that. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot of people that look at that and say that's just full-blown socialism. You're going to have that crowd too. Mm-hmm. But on the left, if we're talking about advancing a positive narrative, right, moving forward and saying what can we do to make America better? What policies don't we have in place right now that we need to begin working toward, even just incrementally like we do, incrementally to get in that direction What are those things? I'm at least hopeful because you can see bubbling up of that sort of thing in grassroots movements, and especially with people who are saying we're done with the establishment, we're done with the ordering of things by the hierarchs, and we're gonna advance a narrative of our own.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how it will work. I think in a two-party system, nothing ever actually escapes the party. I think all new movements get swallowed by it. So I'm interested to see the concessions that this very strong progressives will make when they realize, too, that you don't have the ground game to win elections without the establishment. This country's been rigged that way.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think, like, it kind of cracks me up when you hear people who are like, well, Bernie, he would have won. Now, that's a possibility. People can throw that out there and do the, coulda, woulda, shoulda type thing. But the idea that Bernie would get a bunch of people in there to drain the swamp, because fundamentally that's what they wanted that to happen too. No more lobbyists, no more bankers, no more. We want to get all those people out. We want to get all the gun dealers out. We want all this stuff. So it is a draining of the swamp too. But I think what they would realize is, wow, man, this is actually a lot harder. Like, it's going to be hard for people even like Bernie to stay Bernie.
Yes.
In fact, I would bet my entire living that if he would have won, he wouldn't have looked and sounded much like Bernie after about 2 years.
No, he would have become more establishment. I think there's no guarantee about what Donald Trump will become. The man is absolutely wild. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
For debates, interviews, or speeches, contact PaleoRadio Show at gmail.com.
You love to hate 'em, you hate to love 'em. You just can't get enough of 'em, you sick freaks. Paleo Radio's on the air.
All right, man. I wish sometimes, Joe, that we had a camera.
I know.
Because we were just arguing, actually. We were arguing over...
It was a good one.
It was a good one. Throw it out there.
We were talking about, I believe it was Russia, right?
We were talking about Russia,
and
you're concerned that people... that they tried to get into the election system.
When we were talking about this, we started by talking about Donald Trump and saying that the focus on Donald Trump has a lot to do with his legitimacy, or people arguing about his legitimacy based on the Russia investigation. And my point to that was saying I'm not as concerned about Donald Trump and where Donald Trump is as president or anything like that as I am concerned that Russians got access to a lot of voting records. And yes, they don't know if they opened them or not. They don't know if they got into them or not, but they know that they attempted to. Yeah. And the worry is, this is my biggest fear right now, is that we are debating whether or not something that I think is pretty easily proven happened, about the attempt. It's not to say they swayed it, not to say they shook it, but I'm talking about...
Who's saying they didn't attempt? Who's saying they didn't attempt?
That's right.
Well, I would debate that person. I would say,
right.
There's probably lots of attempts, but again, I said this before we came back. I said, I would be interested to see a pretty detailed list of the attempts. And I've got one up from Vox that talks about a number of different states and stuff that attempts being done.
Yeah.
But I would then also say we need to then lay out the different ways that the United States has done this very thing and say, look, when we describe a game, let's say that there was a game of where somebody from far away would come around and grab stuff out of your mailbox or something. You're like, dude, what's this guy trying to grab stuff out of my mailbox? And you go, yeah, a dude from your house has been doing the same thing over at his house like crazy. And you guys do this to each other all the time.
I think we need way more proof about the U.S. getting into Russian voting machines. Where's that evidence?
Well, I don't think we have evidence that they've gotten in our voting machines, number one.
Where's the evidence that we've put in puppet candidates in the Russian Federation in the last 20 years? Who's
the puppet candidate in this one?
Who's our? That's what I'm.
Well, that's
saying.
what I'm saying. Like,
no,
who's the puppet one and the American one?
I'm saying the idea is that if we're like Russia, well, who's the puppet candidate? Russia absolutely attempted to get Michael Flynn to flip. That's what this whole entire investigation is about. Is looking if Michael Flynn was wittingly or unwittingly doing a lot of work for Russia, and that's what they were talking about.
Yeah.
They're talking about the personal communications between Russians about what people they have inside the administration that possibly are working on things for them. Not even without even knowledge of Donald Trump. It could very well be. That's why my focus is very little on if it comes to Donald Trump and into that level, if it comes to that Donald Trump knew about it and covered it up, that would be spectacular. I don't think we're even close to that.
Yeah, but I'm saying in a game of cyber warfare, we're the kings. We win. Nobody's better.
I don't know about that.
Who has done more in multiple countries? Who has swayed more? Who's getting outed at a ridiculous pace for the kind of stuff, dude, you and I only kind of thought might be real? Like, oh yeah, the CIA would go in and compromise servers. Yeah, that's actually real. That's not fake.
And I don't think the FSB is incapable of the same exact thing.
I'm not saying that they're not. I'm saying that there's a lot of things that are done that people just say, well, that's just cuckoo bird. But if you add that to the equation, you go, man, this is a game that people are playing like crazy. In fact, one of the worst. When have
Americans killed Americans on Russian soil that used to be American spies? Because Russia's done that 3 times in the UK.
I'm talking specifically about elections. I'm talking specifically about electronic warfare with elections, not what you do internally with your own people.
I think that is massively important when you look at the intent of what country.
We put somebody in solitary confinement for years. For years of that person's life, tortured them. And did it because they released information that had ramifications on our government.
Yes, and Russia killed a man in the UK by giving him polonium in the UK after he escaped and said, they're going to kill me here, and it doesn't matter if you're in London. And there's a wide-ranging issue where, as good as London is, they seem to not have a response to how Russian cells get in and actually kill other Russian agents in the UK. It's happened 3 times in the last 10 years.
There's situations where the U.S. has gone into places like, and I know this is
not even close. Yeah, it's not going to be Western countries.
When they go into England. When they go into England and say they're coordinating, or they go to Switzerland and they start coordinating with those countries about how to deal with Assange, including possibly killing him.
Yes, and is Assange dead?
No, because
there is a body count in Russia, Jeremiah.
There's a difference, because when we're talking about that, and that's why it's not an apples-to-apples thing, is that when we're talking about Assange, we're talking about somebody who's got a protectorate around him that's an embassy.
Yes.
Like there's a little bit of a difference, but the attempt, the mere fact that this is a big boy pissing match game of evil guys around the country doing bully tactics. That's just the two biggest superpowers, 2 of the 3 biggest in the world doing bully tactics.
But it's not comparing apples to apples when one has. America is not great with what we do, but we are not on the level of killing journalists, killing old spies in enemy's territory. We're not in that. We do not extend our game that deep. We just do not. And
what does that have to do with?
It has to do with the overall argument of if we're doing it and they're doing it and we shrug our shoulders. I would say that being in an area, choosing between the two, there is a legitimacy to the amount of people that would rather have U.S. meddling than Russian meddling going on around them.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a lot of that I would question, but I would say that would be neither here nor there for me in this situation. I'd say if you rise above it and bird's eye view that thing and go, all right, it's just strange to me. It's an interesting thing, I guess. When as it's being talked about, it's a very one-sided affair. It's like, dude, the Russians did this, the Russians, and I'm like, this is an actual game that people have been playing with huge players, huge stakes. And if we stand above it, it would be like if we were the Pistons and we were constantly talking about the Bulls and saying, well, look at all the fouls that the Bulls are doing. And then you look and you go, well, yeah, well, look at all that. You're doing the same kinds of fouls over here. Yeah, but it hasn't had as potential as much of an impact. Well, yeah, it did over here and over that. They're both teams that are doing huge, injurious things to each other. And rather than saying, okay, how do we fix that? I don't want to shrug my shoulders. It's an arms race.
Do you have a side?
Do I have a side?
Do you have one you'd rather see do better than the other?
The United States, which is why I'm more critical of it. I'm more critical of the ones I love. I'm not, I don't have any affinity for Putin. I know nothing of him other than what is publicly known of foreign leaders, and you can go and research people. I don't have any affinity for the Russian people. I've never been there. I don't know any Russians in my personal life very closely. I do love this country. I served this country. I would hope that this country would do much better. But what I won't let happen, the country, is for the country to pretend that it is not, in fact, a champion. And sometimes the victor supreme of very, very they're not even terrible. It's just the nature of the game that's being played with cyber attacks against different countries to get information and sway those countries to do things that we would want them to do. We do that all the time. We do it in such a way that it becomes a joke.
We don't. Yeah. We have never done it at the overt level that the Russian government did it against the election here in the United States and the election in France, and we'll find out here in the upcoming election in Germany if we get the trifecta, because there's the same exact situation that happened in France where there's a massive data dump of Emmanuel Macron's emails that got stolen by what they believe is a foreign government. And unless this is what I mean of this is the U.S. is involved in these things, and there's no denying that we're involved in these things and that we sway these elections.
And that we lie.
Yes.
Very badly.
But what we don't do, and this is important because when we say, well, this is all they're doing, there's always steps behind what happens afterward. And in terms of Russian policy, it is so different in terms of how they handle dissent to how we handle dissent that they actually will overtly end lives of people that talk a little too much. And yes, America is bad, but I need someone to give me the extensive list of the journalists that Americans actually kill for talking the way they do. Or I need the list of spies that defected from America and talk about us that we went out and killed to say that we're on the same playing field with this foreign entity.
Yeah, and hey, you might get that from listeners of the program.
Sure,
right.
Sure.
We have a lot of that kind of crowd. Listen, 616-656-1680. You can opine on any of the topics that we have described so far. And look, in a matter of a couple minutes, we're going to have our highly coveted Cue of the Day. If you win with the right answer, calling us, you'll be able to dip your hands into that beautiful, amazing prize vault. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this.
You are now entering PaleoRadio.
Welcome to PaleoRadio with your hosts Jeremiah Bannister and Joe Elder.
It's totally true. The most magnificent show. Broadcasting live on Mondays from 10 to noon Eastern Standard right here in Grand Rapids. PaleoRadio hosted by Joe Elder.
Yes, that is me.
Yeah, and Jeremiah Bannister, that's me. And we put our power rings together every single week for this super duo of talk radio. And you know what, man? We have, every single week now, we have a question of the day.
We do.
And, it used to simply be that we... I wouldn't say we're too lazy. I would say maybe we're too absent-minded. We're so busy.
Yes.
Thinking deep thoughts, and
we're so busy focusing on the big stuff.
Yeah, we're so busy focusing on the big stuff, swimming in the deep end of the pool, that we oftentimes forget about the question of the day. And so we just started to make it. We rolled with the punch and said, let's just start making question of the day at 11.
Yeah.
Let's just, that way we get in and it's not like, oh no, we forgot it. Like, oh no, we have an hour actually to kind of put it together.
Plus it gives you that isolated time. You don't get the whole 2 hours to be able to answer it. You only get the one. And you cannot use the Google machine. We always say that. So you can't Google it. This one is actually just a mathematical question in a way. But how many dots are on one die? As in that you would roll in craps or something like that, right? One die. How many dots are there on it? So you just basically add up all the sides. Do not use the Google machine. Call in and let us know what you think.
Yes. And you're allowed to use pencil and paper.
Yes, you are. Pencil and paper, yes. Calculator, no. 616-656-1680.
Yep. So if you believe you know the answer to this, then you give us a call, 616-656-1680, and look, we have an amazing prize vault. We do. And I got to say this because, we say, oh, we got a prize vault. But for real, what does that mean? We have the best prize vault that I know of.
It's fantastic.
I don't know of any other radio show that has a prize vault as cool as ours.
It is pretty mighty. Seriously, we've got a group of just so many different things.
Yeah, stuff ranging from DVDs. We have in there. We have a DVD of Spaceballs, for example. We've got a $20 gift card to Brick Road Pizza. So if you're local and you're interested in that, and they have vegan and vegetarian options too, and so you can definitely check that out. We have tons of books. I was just actually showing the kids Cosmos yesterday. We watched Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I said, this is actually a redo of an older one that was done by this guy. And I went into the vault and I showed them the book Cosmos that we have.
Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan, yes. You can get the book Cosmos by Carl Sagan if you get the answer right.
Yes.
You can get, what is it, Life on Earth by David Attenborough. The pictures alone make it worth it. It is the kind of thing, it's a lot of money. Some of these books are like really expensive kind of books. And you can actually find baseball cards and basketball cards, graphic novels. There's a whole bunch of these different prizes you can get. And we always say this. If you go and you check out the pictures, which you can on our Facebook page at facebook.com/PaleoRadio, the one with the check mark. If you go there and you check out the pictures and you go, wow, man, I see this card, basketball cards, but there's a certain player that I really want. I really like this guy. Message us if you win and you've got the right answer, and you message us and say, look, do you have this team, or do you have this player? Do you have this comic? Do you have this book in that genre of science or religion or philosophy or media or any of these things? Just ask. You might be surprised.
Yeah.
Our vault is bigger than the pictures.
It is.
Oh, we've already got someone with an answer.
Possibly, yes.
Real quick. Okay, we've got Chuck and GR. He's listening on FM. Hey, Chuck, how are you?
Answer 21, man.
It is 21.
Yeah,
You nailed
How
it,
hard
Chuck.
is it to multiply 3 times 7?
Look at you. You're clever man. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So you win. You get to dip your hands into the prize vault. And just like we were saying, we've got some pretty cool prizes, pretty cool books.
Anyone who's done algebra know it's just a simple,
Yes. Yeah.
That's how you do it.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, hey, stay on.
Or if you just know each opposite side of a die adds up to 7, man.
There you go. That's the way of knowing. Which other people do not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good thing, Chuck. Plus, we're going to have you hold on because we're going to be able to get your information. I know who this is already, but we'll get your personal information.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to send you a book. We'll let you look into what we've got. It may not even be a book. There's baseball cards. There's tons of stuff in there.
There's a whole bunch of stuff. You can just look through it and see what you want. All right?
Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank
you so much, Chuck. Yes, man. So, yeah,
look at that. The 7 minutes. That's the record. 7 minutes.
7 minutes.
7 minutes since it was announced, and we have a winner. So we got to get harder questions. But boy, Chuck seems to have had quite a good knowledge of what's going on with
Chuck
dye.
does. Now, look, we could actually we run the show. We have another question of the day. We could actually make another one if we wanted, or just save it.
Yeah. Let's save it.
Let's save it.
We'll give Chuck his day. I think 7 is great.
And
7 minutes.
and you know what? No, we can't take it. We can't do it because here's the thing. He came to that answer in a really clever manner.
I thought so. Better than I did.
Not only he wasn't like, well, I just added up the numbers one by one. I didn't. He actually said, "Oh no, this is how you do it algebraically." And I go, "Oh, dogs. Okay, well, you're definitely the huge time winner today, Chuck. We're super grateful for you to call and in record time." And
I learned too because I didn't know that each side of the die adds to 7. I didn't know that.
I wish I could say that I did. But I didn't, I'm sitting there. I guess I don't play enough stuff with dice, man.
Well, that's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world. But and speaking of something that's not the worst thing in the world, trigger warnings.
Yeah, they're not the worst thing.
They're not the worst thing, Dave Rubin. Like, honest to goodness, trigger warnings can be lame. Trigger warnings can be the idea, like people online on Facebook, click-clactivated to be debating with their positions. They might get upset about it and say, "Well, this is what it means to me." You're going to deal with those people.
Yeah.
But BuzzFeed, they went and they talked to a bunch of psychiatrists and psychologists, and they have them listed here, different PhDs and where they're from. And they asked them things about trigger warnings. And they said, well, what do you think people should know? And these are the 10 things that psychologists wanted us to know about trigger warnings. And number 1 of all of this, there's a difference between being triggered and being uncomfortable.
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Triggering material isn't something that rubs you the wrong way. Being uncomfortable by topics or values or things that upset you is very different than having a symptomatic mental health response, says Newman. For someone with a history of trauma like sexual assault, an attack, war, etc., or someone with PTSD, quote, they may feel a kind of sensitivity or hypervigilance around words or images that could bring out that trauma and bring it to mind.
Yeah, and they go into this fight or flight mode, right? When you have words or imagery that remind them of this. And, PTSD is a real thing.
Yes.
And this is the thing. They bring this up and they say a history of trauma, sexual assault, attack, war. These are big things. This is not just, I don't like that topic.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
Systemic blank. Like, it's not. It is literally saying if you're in war and you're seeing people's bodies blown up.
And we're going to talk about war.
And we're going to talk about
the
this.
invasion
Yeah.
of Normandy. This is going to be, you're going to need to know.
Number 2, what a trigger warning actually looks like can vary, but they're usually not blanket statements from the university.
Yes.
Yeah, and so if you have, there's different triggers, different experiences. What's triggering for someone who was sexually assaulted would be different than what's triggering for someone who's been to war.
Yeah. And they're often case-by-case basis, which is why, on the whole, it's a good idea to have a warning because, yes, for some people, will it be a big deal? No. For others, it will be. So in cases of the people that it will be, why not have something up there for them?
Trigger warnings can also be for content related to suicide, self-harm, addiction, and eating disorders.
Yes. When someone has a history of mental illness, being unexpectedly exposed to imagery or content that deals with the history can be harmful, not just uncomfortable. So it can actually harm the person. And this is, I think it's Bonnoir?
I don't know. Yeah, watching a random video in class that out of nowhere makes light of a bunch of women vomiting after they've eaten lunch or something like that. Because it caught them off guard, they might very well start thinking down those lines again.
I see.
Yeah.
Getting kind of people into the already paved tracks of their mind.
Is that kind of like seeing somebody smoke and saying, I'm going to smoke, though?
I think so.
Is that more like that?
I think it is, but I think when you're dealing with things like addiction, like some of the items they were bringing up, self-harm, addiction, eating disorders, the mind, if you have some of those issues, your mind is already kind of built and set up to go back into those paths. So I think that it's just a warning that you could get back onto the same path that you were previously off of.
Number 4, however, they're not meant to obstruct free speech or dictate what a professor is and is not allowed to teach. So this does not mean the colleges need to limit any discussion of potentially triggering material like rape, murder, war, eating disorders, alcohol, and the like. Okay, so it should function as exactly that, a warning. That's it, to say, look, if you need to mentally prepare yourself for conversations about something that you have either you're struggling with or that's been, something that's inflicted upon you in a terrible and traumatic way, that you have the time to just know in advance, okay, that day this topic's going to be discussed. I need to actually do my best to make sure that I'm mentally prepared. If that's where you are, and I'm speaking as someone with mental health issues, stuff gets weird on me too. I lost a daughter to cancer. Mm-hmm. That's a big thing. I've been suicidal in the past, and so I understand some of this. On the other hand, I also know that I have to really, really work hard. And I'm glad I've got mental health providers that work with me on that to say, you need to work hard not only on your perception, but how you deal with things that can really get you down.
Yeah.
Things that can really hurt you and mess you up with your issues that you have in your life. We're going to work with you on it. Not everybody has that.
No.
Not everybody's at that place.
And a lot of people are very much outside of that loop and don't have the help. They've either sought it and it didn't help them, or they can't seek it again. Number 5, the goal of trigger warnings is not to avoid all triggers, but avoidance may be necessary based on where you are in recovering from your trauma. It says all the experts on BuzzFeed Health that had been spoken to agreed that avoiding triggers forever isn't a solution. In the long run, the goal is to get to a place where you're equipped to deal with the triggers when you run into them. But there is a critical period of healing, and avoiding the triggers may be necessary at this point, so long as it's part of the long treatment plan. So, that's another one. I didn't know that. The idea is not to permanently avoid them, but it's a kind of a temporary avoidance.
So I kind of went ahead of myself on that. Is that, that the idea isn't that you warn the person and that they say, well, I'm out of that class, won't go there today. That might have to happen for a class. But you should talk to your professor. You should also talk to your healthcare provider, your mental health care provider. Because if you just say, look, these are triggers for me, and you have not talked to a professor, you might be misdiagnosing things.
Yes.
You really do need to go and just have somebody to talk to that can help you to navigate your way through the triggers.
Yes, there's plenty more to this, but we'll share it later on and share it on our Facebook page. Don't forget it, lots of trigger warnings here.
Join the club. Support our work by visiting patreon.com/PaleoRadio today.
Back to Eagle and Dragon.
Mega dope sauce, Joe.
Yes, as always.
We got a caller right out of the gate, in fact. But here's the thing. The caller wants to talk about the health bill. And we don't have any notes for this. In fact, but we are grateful for the call, so we're going to punch it through. We've got about... Ed, are you there?
Yes, I'm right here.
Okay, yes. So we're going to give you about a minute to minute and a half because we didn't have this on the docket. But when you called, we said, you know what, this is a good thing. We want to let you say what you're going to say.
The thing is, it's going to be decided this week, very likely.
Okay, and what is it going to be?
The health bill, the GOP health bill.
Okay. And then what did you want to talk about with the GOP health bill? Just talking about people being aware of it and that the vote's coming out and to be keeping an eye on it, or what else?
Definitely, because the Senate Majority Leader, they hit it until just, I think it was Thursday, they unveiled it, and they're talking about having it passed by July the 4th.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Oh. Now, and
they're hiding it.
You remember
they don't want discussions. They didn't have committee meetings. No experts coming in to discuss this bill. And the worst thing, President Trump said that he would protect Medicaid, and now they're talking about 800. I believe the figure is correct. $800 billion cut in that. They're trying to just eliminate that.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you for the call.
Do you have any other advice to go out and vote, or is there anything else you'd like to?
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's real important to get on the email or telephone your Congress people in the National Congress, and I got the White House is the whitehouse.gov, and call your particular national representative in Congress to just say no to this, and tell President Trump to abide by his promise that he wouldn't cut Medicaid. And I got a nephew with type 1 diabetes, and without this program, he's going to die much younger.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that phone call, Ed. I appreciate that you took the time to give us a call.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And we got to defeat this thing.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for that phone call. I'll tell you, that was one of those things, man, that, yes, in fact, Trump did say. Trump did say that kind of thing. He was like, look, your medical stuff is going to be protected. I'm not coming after your welfare, because he needed the votes of people who desperately need welfare. I mean, that's real. That's huge amounts of people who voted for Donald Trump because they're really hurt financially, and they're afraid.
Yeah,
they're terrified. They're bottom of the barrel educationally a lot of times, and so they said. And he made promises. He said, "Look, you are going to be able to keep your medical." And plus, a lot of old people. Those old people don't.
A lot of older
people. A lot
people
of the baby boomers. Yes, dude.
Well, and I think that the Medicaid thing is a very big deal. What's more important, too, is the call that Ed put in here about the way that they went about trying to pass this bill. This is just an absolutely stark difference than it was for the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act had no chance of being pushed through like this. It couldn't have happened. It couldn't have happened that Obama got the head of everybody working on the ACA behind closed doors for 2 months and would not say anything about it, unveil it on a Thursday and say within a week and a half we expect this to be in.
Yeah.
It would not. That is irresponsible on an epic level, and it's about getting a political win, and it has nothing to do with health care.
It has nothing to do with the genuine care for the American person.
No, nothing at all. It's
nothing
about getting
a
win, a political win.
Yes.
And it's disgusting, honestly. It's disgusting.
I'm a really conservative person. And I'm also, and people are interested sometimes in saying, hey, man, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? To get kind of a feel for it. But I'll tell you one thing that is not very conservative that I believe. Well, I would disagree with it. I would say that it actually is a conservative thing. But universal health care.
Yes. That is conservative. It's conservative as apple pie.
Yeah. And I would say, especially if you're a nationalist, I mean, you say, well, duh. Like a nationalist program for healthcare? Yeah, that's kind of implicit in my ism. And so I look at it that way and I say, he made promises, nationalistic promises, in fact, that had to do with covering people, especially people who couldn't pay. And so and it's not surprising what the Republicans are doing. And to a lot of people, it shouldn't be surprising that Trump would flip so easily. Mm-hmm. But he is a real wuss.
Yeah.
I mean, if he really believed that stuff, and I mean this, if he really believed that, what he said, and I agreed with when he said stuff like that, those were things that I said we got to throw bones at the guy. Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That's a good thing for him to say. And then for him basically for this to happen and to be like, oh, this is the plan that we're rolling with, and I'm going to back it and endorse. Yeah, at that point, give me a break. That's total betrayal.
Yeah.
That's 100% betrayal. Oh, yes. He's totally, on a number of things, he's betrayed the people who voted for him.
Yeah.
I guess yeah.
And this is the other case, too, and this is just, it must be said, that if it would have been the way of Hillary Clinton would have disappointed a lot of people, too. Yeah. The thing is, with Donald Trump, what puts him in a different category is he is not politically savvy, so when he makes a mistake, he can make a grand one. He can cut really deep because he doesn't really... I don't want to say he doesn't know what he's doing, but in a lot of sense, he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know the rules.
Right.
I mean, Paul Ryan's defense of him before about saying, look, he's new at this. He doesn't know how it works. That is not a defense. You're the president of the United States. It's not a learning curve. You should have already had experience before you got there. That is no one's fault but the fault of the people that put him there. Yeah. You can't claim the he's green argument when you said we want a green person. This is what happens when you bring in someone who doesn't know how to do it. I mean, I think that's the consequence you pay.
You know, and I have even defended him a little bit on the whole thing to do with the drain in the swamp deal and saying, look, because he doesn't know how it works, which is, some people say, your position would be people like that shouldn't be in. Some people say that's actually not anything that's going to be, wiping him out. It's not going to disqualify him from their electoral calculations. But if you don't know how it works, and you're surrounded by a bunch of people that do, and the people that do not share your philosophies on issues like healthcare that's more expanded, or border walls, or any of these major things that he desires to do that are nationalistic rather than globalistic. Any of those things, getting the people in Those people exist. I mean, it's not like there's no super smart, politically savvy nationalist. It's that it's really hard to get those people in. They write for think tanks. Mm-hmm. That's what they do. They write for magazines. They write for think tanks. They write for newspapers. They're spokespersons for different things. That's what they do. But it's really tough because you have a pre-existing apparatus there.
Yeah,
and he's oblivious to how that works, and literally he was owned.
He got pwned.
He's overwhelmed.
He got pwned because that machine swallows people that even know what to do with it. So I mean,
totally.
Give some perspective to this, folks, about the chances Donald Trump had to even do anything. Which I know there's a lot of liberals yelling into the radio right now. We know this, and I'm not trying to say that it wasn't something we accept, but it's just to say that this monster swallows people that have experience. How in the world with no experience are you going to do it? And again, I have to mention it, but everyone has a Mr. Smith goes to Washington mentality about how to solve our problems politically, and they don't realize that comm theory and media ethics are the way to solve these problems. You're not going to walk in there and filibuster for 4 hours and make America great again. You're not going to run a rally in Iowa 6 months into being president and make America great again. It's not going to work. What does work is having someone who understands how the system works and works within it to break it apart. And I think that we've made it way too easy for people who have always been interested in taking advantage of government to take advantage of it because we, in a way, put a fox in the hen house and he doesn't even know he's a fox.
Ben Sasse. I was thinking of Ben Sasse. I mean, you want to see how something changes a guy. Ben Sasse, for a year, kept his mouth shut while a senator. He didn't do jack. Completely quiet, observed. He gets up and gives this pretty interesting speech, actually, about working together and about the difficulties and things like that. And then, within a matter of 6 months, the guy is just totally neck deep in the very thing that he hates because the Trump campaign. And it forced him into the foxhole. Mm-hmm. And so if you go back and watch the first stuff he did, and then you go and you listen to the new stuff and say, look, the monster even ate Ben Sasse.
Yeah.
Ben Sasse, he was good for a year and a speech. And then all of a sudden, kazam kazoo.
And what makes it more difficult to me is if people who have been naturally opposed to a lot of the Republican agenda of the last 8 years about getting rid of health care and about not having equal rights to gay people and not having equal rights to trans folks and that sort of thing, and having a preference for Christianity over other religions and government. That type of stuff is well in the works now because all those folks are the folks that are around Donald Trump. They all have been working on implementing plans like that for a long, long time. It's just the head of the snake that didn't have a plan. They're doing it for him. They're pushing through their own agenda they've been waiting to push through, and Donald Trump is the vehicle that does it. And I think we're actually making a big mistake to blame Donald Trump for it. This is an agenda that I've seen for years.
Yeah.
None of this is a surprise. Not one bit. Dismantling the EPA, leaving the Paris Agreement, talking about building a wall. None of this is a surprise. And I think that's the actual danger is we're focusing too much on Donald Trump and not on the people in the cabinet that have been the focus of criticism for a long, long time.
When we get back from this break, another focus we're going to have is on those ecosexuals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those ecosexuals.
Believing that having sex with the earth could save it.
Yeah.
And this is over at Vice. It's by Neil MacArthur. We're going to definitely be talking about that. I'll give you a little dipski here. From skinny dippers to people who have actual intercourse with nature, ecosexuality is a growing movement, taking a new approach to combating climate change.
Oh, my.
Wowzers. We'll be back with more, folks. Don't go anywhere. 616-656-1680 if you'd love to be part of the conversation right here at PaleoRadio.
Now back to Joe and Jeremiah.
Welcome back to the show, folks. Again, we do need that camera for the in between segments.
It's too funny.
Oh, my
It's
goodness.
too funny.
So, PaleoRadio, we're back. We have quite an article to talk to you guys about today. We're just going back over the Ecosexual article was worth it. This is by Neil MacArthur from Vice. Ecosexuals believe having sex with the earth could save it.
I wonder, Neil MacArthur, did you get assigned this? Or
No.
is this, he's like,
Interest piece.
He's like, the interest piece.
I have to think it's an interest piece.
Oh, that's so good.
I want to believe it was an interest piece. From skinny dippers to people who have actual intercourse with nature, ecosexuality is a growing movement taking a new approach to combating climate change, which, that's quite a new approach. If you happen to find yourself in Sydney this week, you have the unique opportunity to have sex with the earth. You just need to stop by the Ecosexual bathhouse. Yes, the Ecosexual bathhouse.
All right.
Which is currently part of the Sydney Liveworks Festival, or Liveworks, I'm sorry if I mispronounced it, of experimental art. The bathhouse is an interactive installation created by artists Lauren Cronmeyer and Ian Sinclair of Pony Express, who described the work to me as a no-holds-barred extravaganza meant to dissolve the barriers between species as we descend into oblivion.
Whoa, no, wait a second.
Whoa,
Dissolve
bro.
the barriers between species?
Whoa.
What is this all about?
Gonna want to pump the brakes on that.
As
kid.
we descend into oblivion? What?
Yes.
What's happening?
It says they also see their piece as part of a much larger ecosexual movement, which they say is gathering momentum around the world.
Gathering steam.
Yes.
Really steaming up a lot of windows all over the
Yeah,
globe.
well, or no windows. 'cause
No
we're out in
windows.
nature, baby.
Yeah, right.
It says they may be right. Jennifer Reed, a PhD candidate in sociology at the University of Nevada, is writing her dissertation on ecosexuality and says that the number of people who identify as ecosexuals has increased markedly in the past 2 years. And Google search data confirms that interest in the term have spiked dramatically over the past year. We may look back at 2016 as the year ecosexuality hit mainstream.
Yeah, there's a little link here that says that it really exploded. Oh, yeah, it did. It exploded in November or October of 2016, it looks like. It exploded with a huge, huge spike. I don't know what happened that day or what it was that would cause that, but I'm looking here on Google Trends. But it went back down pretty far. I mean, it went almost back down to not very many.
Yes.
People talking about that. And look, if you look at the pictures and see for yourself, you should go check it out. They look like they're wearing those masks, like you wear at a hospital. So there are these two ladies, the art group Pony Express, and they're kissing, but they have these masks on, and over the front of the masks is a bunch of what looks like grass.
It's a grass mask.
It's a grass mask.
Like a gas
and
mask.
they're rubbing that grass mask against each other's faces.
This is real life.
This is seriously happening. Amanda Morgan, a faculty member at UNLV School of Community Health Sciences, who is involved in the movement, says that ecosexuality can be measured in a sense not unlike the Kinsey scale. On one end, it encompasses people who try to use sustainable sex products or who enjoy skinny dipping or naked hiking. On the other are people who roll around in the dirt, having an orgasm covered in potting soil. So that's just gross, if you ask me. Yeah, I'm sorry for the virgin ears listening to the show.
Well,
but no, I mean, for realsies, that's pretty nasty. There are people who have sex with trees and who enjoy themselves under waterfalls. We'll just leave it that way.
This is what the person, Amanda Morgan, said as a quote.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, this is the faculty member at UNLV School of Community Health and Sciences. Community Health Sciences.
Writing the dissertation on this.
And okay.
The movement's, tax dollars at work, folks. The movement's growing prominence owes much of the efforts to the Bay Area performance artists, activists, and couple, Annie Sprinkle and Elizabeth Stevens, who have made ecosexuality a personal crusade. They have published an ecosex manifesto on their website, Sex Ecology, and produced several films on the theme, including a documentary, Goodbye Golly Mountain, an ecosexual love story, which depicts the pollen-amorous relationship between them and the Appalachian Mountains.
Hey, they know how to play with those words, though. That's kind of funny. Pollen-amorous.
The pun on pollen-amorous is genius. So kudos to them for the comedic, for the satire aspect of it. But don't you see something narcissistic about marrying a mountain or this is my mountain
and they did.
I love this mountain.
They actually married some. Yes, it says right here, while touring a theater piece across the country, they've officiated wedding ceremonies where they and fellow ecosexuals marry the earth, the moon, and other natural entities. Oh, it's totally. I mean, can you imagine? All right, what are you doing? This weekend, I'm totally going to marry the moon.
Yes.
What a weirdo. What a goof.
The moon has developed for billions of years for me,
man.
and has been waiting on Earth for me, one of the 6 billion other people on the Earth, but just me and the moon.
You and the moon and marrying the Earth, yes.
Yeah,
and then we're going to go in private.
You wouldn't marry the moon because it was pockmarked. So you're all about the external, not about what's the internal of the moon. Loving it to the core.
Yeah, so
to
they're
its
like
hot magma core.
That honeymoon special moment where they go and find a private place on the Earth.
Yes.
Yes. It's like, well, where do you go to find privacy with the Earth? Well, anywhere that's kind of a private place.
Anywhere for the Earth.
Anywhere for the Earth.
Yes.
And the moon and other natural entities.
Of course, we're playing about this, but this is insane.
And there's something about that waterfall thing that actually sounds kind of nice. But dude, the whole hanging out with trees, like I'm like, man, dude, has to be one of those birches or something. Like, dude, no, none of that chunky bark.
I'm a little worried about that.
Yeah.
It says here in the article too, Sprinkle and Stevens talk openly about ecosexuality as a new form of sexual identity.
Oh, yes.
At last year's San Francisco Pride Parade, they led a contingent of over 100 ecosexuals in a ribbon-cutting ceremony to officially add an E to the LGBTQI acronym.
No.
Which is an oxymoron in itself at this point, that you call it an acronym, and we're hitting the point of it getting a 7-letter acronym. Like, the idea of an acronym is to save time. We're not saving time at this point.
You just say queer or something.
I am an ally. Okay, guys, I'm an ally. I want to be an ally. I want to have an easier way to talk about the group that we're talking about than have half of the alphabet. I'm serious. If you have an issue with this, call in and just tell me I'm wrong. But legitimately, at what point? LGBTQIE. There's also a few more. I've heard it explained different ways. I think there's an S.
There's a plus.
And a plus.
I think the plus
makes sense.
LGBT plus should be.
It all makes. Yeah. I'm not. Here's the thing: is I'm talking about the semantics of this issue have nothing to do with the actual issues themselves. They're very real issues. I'm talking about when we address the community. Is there an easier way than 7 to 8 letter acronyms? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I don't know about this whole E part added to it.
No, hey man.
Especially when they get mixed in the species thing.
Free love, bro.
Oh.
Free love, bro.
Yeah, it is just not.
It is scary.
But dude, the ribbon cutting ceremony, can you imagine? Being at the Pride Parade and just being like, oh, what are these cats doing? Are they wearing grass on their faces?
Now, then there's like the lower level of it when you're talking about on the different scale. In 2008, Stephanie Iris Weiss, a writer and activist based in New York, began researching her book, Ecosex, Go Green Between the Sheets and Make Your Love Life Sustainable. Mm-hmm. She published this in 2010. Weiss, who was at the time unaware of Sprinkle and Stevens' work, initially lent the idea of a more practical, literal focus, with research revealing the harmful environmental impact of materials used in condoms, lubes, and other sex products upon both of our bodies and the planet. So she basically is saying there's a way to have carbon-neutral erotica equipment.
Safer, more sustainable, type stuff.
Which is
that's reasonable.
That's more, I think, on a respectable scale.
Yeah.
I think that's a far and away a good long jaunt from the tree love. So I think there's some respectability there. But boy, I'll tell you what, the ecosexuality movement is something to keep our eye on, at least in a satirical way.
Yeah, Morgan describes the movement as a means of getting beyond the depressing Al Gore stuff that people often associate with environmentalism. Her hope, and that of others like her, such as Weiss and Kronemeyer, is that it can give the average person a way of engaging with the issue that is accessible and fun, and that creates a sense of hopefulness. Yes. So if you're like, okay, I don't know about all that environmental stuff, I'm not sure about climate change. What are you going to say that's going to persuade me? And they'll be like, well, if you take this face mask, you should consider possibly experimenting. You might have fun thinking about this.
When's the last time you've worn a grass mask?
When's the last time you wore the grass mask?
So, I don't know about that. I think that looking towards getting people more educated on what's going on is the answer.
I'm not directing them to that Ecosexual's website.
No, I don't think making sweet lurve to the ocean or anything is going to help the ocean as much. I don't think the ocean thinks it's as good for it as you do. Let's just put it that way. So yes, it's an interesting concept, this ecosexual. Oh my gosh,
man! I mean, can you just imagine? I have people come up to me that I have a lot of friends who disagree with climate change, and we debate it and stuff, and we have our fun conversations. And I can just the hilarity of thinking through a situation where one of those individuals comes up and is having a debate, and I'm like, look, you're obviously not happy with Al Gore. That whole downer environmentalism thing. Here's kind of like if he's the Buddhist view, we have the Taoist view over here. Here's the Taoist environmentalist view, and here's what we do. And point him to that website. Under no circumstance. I can't imagine any circumstance where I would go, this is a good tool to use.
Yeah.
Most people who'd be down with that stuff probably already believe that.
I think it actually, it hurts. It hurts.
It hurts the movement.
It hurts.
It hurts the cause.
Someone says, I know you're really upset about how bad climate change is, but we can actually have some good out of this. Or I just think it brings in a lot of bad ideas. It's away from just general understanding. We have a couple minutes, so I wanted to ask, when you have those debates with people about climate change, do you find that they are not so apprehensive about the actual facts of climate change as much as they are about how to deal with 100%. Climate change?
At this point, almost every one of them will admit now, because almost every one of them will admit that we have warming and that it's different, that it's not the way it was when they were kids, and that the idea, they've been saying, well, it's just the sun. They've been doing that for a while, and I think that they're realizing that some arguments, if you use that, and it works, and the whole thing goes away, that's one thing. But if you use that argument a long time ago, and data keeps coming out that disproves this over and over, you can say that all day long, but you end up looking really dumb. And some of these people that I've debated with end up looking and sounding pretty dumb. And I mean that in a way that I'm not trying to be totally
rude. We're just
talking
about the debate itself.
The debate itself. And maybe dumb is the wrong word. To say they are uneducated and uninformed. They don't know. In fact, most of them couldn't point to where the models are or how it works or any of that. They just have these assumptions outright, many of them religious, as to why it just can't be that way. But they see things are a-changing.
Yeah, things are changing. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back for more Paleo Radio. Lots to try to cover in these last 15 minutes.
For debates, interviews, or speeches, contact PaleoRadio at gmail.com.
You love to hate 'em, you hate to love 'em. You just can't get enough of 'em, you sick freaks. Paleo Radio's on the air.
Welcome back to Paleo Radio. Last 15 minutes of epic awesomeness before we're gone for another week, and you're going to have to crawl under a rock and wait for us to return. Of course not. You guys are very busy people and very successful people.
We love our last segment. It's always a bunch of fun. We have a great topic here. We're going to talk about modern-day slavery. Many southern states have prison inmates working in governors' mansions and Capitol buildings. But I just wanted to say real quick, man, just a self-congratulatory shout-out to myself. Yeah. But, dude, I weighed in at the VA, the MOVE program, at 197 pounds.
You're sub-200.
I'm sub-200.
That's awesome, man.
And that's the first time since, and 2002, that I've been under that weight.
That's awesome.
Last time I was still signed into the Navy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never, it's been a minute.
That's great, man.
That I've been, and still no cigarettes, no vaping. I think I'm pretty close to.
You're hitting the point where you're starting to lose count of how many days.
I don't even know the days at this point. It's like almost 2 months or something.
Awesome.
I just don't even care anymore. It's not even, I don't think about it. But then also, I've been eating good. I've been doing that whole no caffeine, so I haven't had caffeine in like a week and a half.
Yep.
And I haven't had, what's that? Longer than, okay, so Angela corrected me. Longer than a week and a half. So I'm probably pushing now, 2.5 weeks maybe?
That's awesome.
Anyway, so very, very good.
How do you feel?
Dude, I feel amazing.
Good.
I really do. I feel better than I've ever felt before. I sleep better. I I just feel better all around. And I'm not in as much pain, man.
That's good.
Like, my back doesn't hurt as bad anymore.
Yeah.
You know, my posture's getting better. I'm not as slumped over and stuff. My clothes are fitting better on me. And I'm just really happy. And I'm losing the weight. I'm doing a count of all my food and giving it to the VA. And they say I'm doing great with my food.
Yeah.
Pretty strict. I mean, I'm pretty much a pescatarian at this point. But I'm losing it safely. I'm losing about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds a week. And I am going to the gym, incorporating that to where instead of going 2 or 3 times a week for a couple hours, I'm going more regularly for shorter amounts of time.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I just wanted to throw that in there real
Congratulations.
quickly. I didn't want to distract and take too far from that. But it's a big
That is
thing
really
for me.
cool.
It's totally life-changing. And I'm really grateful for all the listeners who are supporting me and who've sent messages following the story of the many different changes that I've made in my life. It's a lot of them, actually, man.
Yeah.
And I've made them, and I'm very grateful for all of the support. So
That's
I
really good.
wanted to say that.
Yeah, that's great, man. That is awesome. I don't know how to segue that into modern day slavery.
This is not awesome.
So I'm not going to.
yeah. There's no.
You know what's not awesome is modern day slavery.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
This is from Alternet. Good little site. Modern day slavery. Many southern states have prison inmates working in governors' mansions, Capitol buildings, as Jeremiah had mentioned before. This is by Celisa. I think it is Colical.
Yeah, let's just call it that. Call it that.
We're sorry that we're terrible with the names, but I'm telling you what, we'll just post some of these names. It's not like we haven't looked at them. I just don't know how to pronounce it.
Like the next one.
Yes. Oh, yeah. When activist Sam S., as I will call him.
Sam S. It looks like Sinyangwe.
Sinyangwe? I think that's
Sinyangwe.
it. When activist Sam Sinyangwe was awaiting a meeting with the governor's office at the Louisiana State Capitol building in Baton Rouge, he noticed something odd. A black man in a dark blue jumpsuit was printing papers while a correctional guard with a badge and a gun stood watching over him. The pair stood against the white middle-aged legislators populating the building. Sinyangwe said that he did not know exactly what he was looking at until he saw another black man in the same dark blue uniform serving food at the Capitol building's cafeteria. This time, Mr. S. noticed that the man had a patch on his chest labeling him as a prisoner of the Louisiana State Department of Corrections, complete with an identification number. He realized that the server, the man printing the papers, and the other people working at lunch were actual prisoners. So that's unreal. Inmates working at the Capitol building in Baton Rouge is a common sight. Prisoners work in the Louisiana governor's mansion, and inmates clean up after the Louisiana State University football games as well. That's insane. But the labor practice of having inmates work in state governments building this extends beyond Louisiana. At least 6 other states in the U.S. allow this practice: Arkansas, Alabama, Missouri, Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Georgia. So these states all allow prisoners to actually work in those buildings. Yeah. Or to actually not allow them to.
No,
make
they vet them.
No, they're vetted.
Yeah, they vet them really well, and they say, in fact, there was... they talk about it. There's certain things you cannot commit, certain crimes, like that you're simply not allowed to. And the person who oversees this project, I'm kind of scrolling through right here. Joseph Nix, director of executive security at the governor's mansion, Mississippi, told the Times back in '88 that the inmates tend to be the best workers. Right? George Lombardi, the Missouri Department of Corrections director, defended the department's work release program, in which one of the jobs includes working at the governor's mansion. About 700 of the 30,000 inmates in the state's prison system are part of the work release program. He said that it instills great work ethic, pride, self-esteem, and compassion in offenders. It really cuts to the core philosophy of our department, which is, in addition to the time you have to serve, you have another obligation to help your community, if possible. So we present you with opportunities to do that in the form of work release and or restorative justice efforts that we have throughout the system.
Is there something to be said about doing it in a governor's mansion?
Yeah. The governor's
doing
mansion,
the landscaping
that's the
for
thing.
the congressional offices?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about that.
You know, the congressional offices, I don't know. I mean, they make, traditionally people say, well, they make plates, and they do it inside of prisons or different places where they would go. I can imagine that being beneficial, and that people, if that's what they wanted, if they had the right to choose. And it'd be interesting to have some of these people on to maybe talk about this further.
Yeah.
And to ask why some things are, like why the governor's mansion, if you have other places that are still public. I mean, if they're doing public. highways and public things than public buildings and property.
But as a first world country, can't we be paying a professional in landscaping to be landscaping the congressional's office? And paying them an actual livable wage?
I think that this would not be a problem if they weren't being paid between 20 cents and $2.70 a day.
Exactly right.
Because,
this is not a work program of gaining employment or financial gain.
I applaud look, he brings up some good key terms here. He says, in the form of work release. This is something that advocates have fought for, to say, look, we need to have better, more humane things. If people work, they should be able to get out. And he says restorative justice efforts. So you're trying to restore these people through this system. And he says right here, we're the last leg before they go out to society. I treat them like staff. I appreciate the work they do. They're ready to go back out and make something of themselves, and we hope that we help with that. That's true, but how can you be helping somebody? I mean, let's say that he's actually being sincere. Let's just say we're not going to question the sincerity of that statement. Okay, how well is that person going to be able to get out if all they're saving up every day that they're working those hours, that you're trying to instill that in them to show the benefit of that, and that person is going to get rewarded for their labor, that at the end of that day, they're looking at less than a quarter?
Yeah.
How are you saving those pennies, man?
It says, yes, in Louisiana, the inmates in the Capitol are paid between 2 and 20 cents per hour. That's insane. They could opt for earning good time credit towards early release, but only if they qualify. And with a normal workday of at least 12 hours, from 5 in the morning to at least 5 in the afternoon, barring legislative sessions when inmates work more than 12 hours, the prisoners make between $24 and $2.40 a day.
Yeah.
Inmates working in the governor's mansion in Missouri recently got a small pay raise of $1.25 an hour to make it about $10 per day. With the previous arrangement, they got $9 a day, and in Arkansas, the prisoners are not paid at all. Where I have a problem is I think that it gets awfully close to chain gangs. I understand where work programs are helpful, but if we had a legal system that didn't allow private prisons, I would be more for this. I think this incentivizes people to get businesses going, to have inmates do that business, and to keep inmates in prison to have them do the work. Whenever you have a private prison, you have incentive to keep people there. What good is a prison to have your commodity leave? It's not good at all. The incentive is to stay. And if you can to me, I think it gets awful close to the scary stuff like Shawshank Redemption. You know, my wife baked you this awful nice pie, and underneath the pie is $100,000. You know, thanks for the road contract there, sport. I think that it's dangerous. And I can understand wanting people to have work programs, but I don't think it has to be connected with doing work for legislators. I think that's too close of a relationship for ethics concerns.
Yeah. You know, I'd be interested to see, kind of a constructive criticism that says, all right, look, we applaud the goal of trying to rehabilitate people to work. We also know, as the people point out in the article, that it's really hard for people once they leave the system to get work. Okay, so we're kind of fooling ourselves a little bit when we say, oh, well, if we just train them before they get out, then they'll get jobs when they're out.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, because you can go through – now, maybe the program's different. Maybe they give them a letter of recommendation.
Maybe.
They might. I don't know. I would love to ask. But if you don't, and let's suppose that people go through the program and then they get out and then they go apply for a job. Well, we already have data on how difficult it is for people with criminal records to get a job, and how hard it is for black people to get a job over white people with criminal records.
Even if they don't have a criminal record.
That's a real thing. Yeah.
Yes. Right. This is important in the article. I think this paragraph really locks some things down. Even the name given to prisoners who work as servants in the governor's mansions and capitol buildings in some states, trustee is what they're called, is the same title that was given to prisoners who worked as overseers on infamous prison plantations such as Angola and Parchman. Prison plantations began replacing the convict lease system in the 1920s as a way for prisoners, an overwhelming majority of whom were black men, to work. Back then, it was considered a privilege to be an overseer on a plantation, and it is the same narrative that goes for inmates working at the governor's mansion today.
Crazy, crazy, crazy also that we're out of time.
We are out of time. It
Lambo.
happens so fast.
Super terrible.
Thank you guys for listening to another great episode of Paleo Radio. You can stick around with us on social media throughout the week. Get a hold of us on Facebook or Twitter at twitter.com/Paleo Radio Show or facebook.com/Paleo Radio.
And find us on Patreon at Paleo Radio. We love all of you. Thank you for your support. Talk to us throughout the week. We'll see you next Monday.